7 days had passed since Claria's leg had fully healed. Her arm was nearly there too, just her fingertips left. By tomorrow, she should be completely recovered. After some discussion, we decided to break camp and leave tomorrow. Yes, I could now converse with Claria quite fluently. Occasionally, I still came across unknown words, but for daily conversation, it was no issue at all. Claria even assured me that my pronunciation was practically flawless. Ideally, I would like to converse with others besides Claria to gather more language samples, but that would have to wait. Now that we could talk, I asked her why she was being chased and by whom. Claria thought for a moment and asked if she could wait a bit longer before explaining. She promised to tell me everything soon. It must be something complicated. After living with her for a while, I was certain she wasn't a bad person. Probably not a criminal either, so I didn't mind waiting until she was ready. As for her pursuers, if they came, it wouldn't be a small group. Maybe dozens, though unlikely to be more than 100. But she also said they might not come at all. What a vague situation. Should I plan for around 50? I figured a rifle would be enough to manage, but I'd still need to be mentally prepared. I wasn't thrilled about the idea of shooting first and asking questions later. Still undecided about that part. It's been 7 days since I learned magic, but progress on that front had been slow. Well, in some areas it was progressing, but not with fire magic or other offensive spells. That was because I'd asked Nanum for a favor. The Space Marine Corps had a device called a multi-sensor. As the name suggests, it could detect everything around you. Terrain, internal structures of buildings, presence of life forms, etc. With it, ambushes were practically impossible unless someone was cloaking themselves. Since arriving on this planet, the first thing I wished for was a multi-sensor. Amazed by the versatility of magic, I asked Nanum if it was possible to replicate the multi-sensor with magic. Since then, I'd been helping with various experiments and had no time or mana to spare. But through this, we discovered many things about mana. All living things possess mana. From big boars to tiny insects, even plants contain trace amounts. Not enough for a fireball, of course, but it was still a fascinating discovery. Mana gathers where other mana is. However, once a certain amount collects within a body, it begins to repel further mana. The reason for this remains unclear. Interestingly, the amount of mana a being can hold differs by species. But within the same species, it's consistent. For example, Claria and I have identical mana capacity. The difference in how many fireballs we can cast seems to be due to how we use mana. According to Claria, the more skilled you are, the more efficiently you can use mana. We're now gathering data on the mana levels of different life forms, hoping to identify species from afar. This daily data collection could lead to a kind of mana-based radar. We also discovered that mana behaves like both particles and waves, just like light. It reflects, interferes, and diffracts. This was revealed when we learned we could emit mana directly without casting a spell. When emitted as a pulse, a weak one does nothing, but a strong, rapid pulse bounces off other mana clusters, exhibiting reflective behavior. Using this property, we managed to create a rudimentary mana detection system, like radar. The detection range depends on the strength of the pulse. Stronger pulses detect a wider area. An unexpected development, Claria could sense these pulses. During one of our experiments, she asked what I was doing because she felt a surge of magical power. Apparently, in this world, mana in motion is called magical power. People say they feel it when using magic, but I still can't. Maybe one day. Claria once told me that someone who taught her magic said she had an exceptionally strong sense for mana, so I had her help with the experiments. If using this detection magic alerted the enemy to our location, it would be useless. Ideally, I wanted to detect them without them detecting us. We discovered that the strength of the magical power Claria senses also depends on distance, which makes sense. That led to an idea. Increase the pulse strength in stages. For example, start with a weak pulse that can't be detected from 50 meters away. If nothing's there, go to 75 meters. Then 100 meters. This way, we can scan stealthily, hopefully. If it doesn't work, we'll adjust. The best part is, Nanum can activate this detection magic on its own. Probably because it doesn't require much visualization. I just give the command and Nanom executes it, showing the results on a virtual display. It's just like the multi-sensor interface and easy to use. The cost of this detection magic is excellent, about 1/100th the mana of a single fireball. We'll use it as much as we can. We couldn't recreate the multi-sensor perfectly, but even detecting life forms alone is incredibly useful. When I reported our success to Cleria, she froze again in awe, then immediately begged me to teach her the spell. To be honest, this spell only works because of Nanom's sensory and processing capabilities, so I dodged the question, telling her she might learn it once she gets better at magic. Somehow, this led to us going hunting together today. I'm not quite sure how that happened. It was nearly noon after we wrapped up the final testing. Let's eat before we head out. Grilled fish and big boar stir fry with vegetables, a classic combo but tasty. Ready to go hunting? Of course, let's go, Alan. Claria looked like she could barely wait. She used to be shy when saying Alan, but now she was used to it. Her speech had gotten much more casual, too. The hunting ground was a mountain about an hour's walk from camp. For some reason, it had an abundance of edible plants, which attracted animals. We headed there, using detection magic along the way. 016, a new departure. At last, my arm and leg are fully healed. I clench my left hand into a fist. It's been a long time since I felt this sensation. You often hear that you don't appreciate something until it's gone. How true that is. I was lucky enough to get it back. From now on, I'll take better care of this body. And today, we're finally setting off for Titania, a city in the Kingdom of Berta. We haven't stayed here long, but still, I feel a touch of sadness leaving this little base behind. As I watch Lord Corinth, no, Alan, making breakfast, I find myself thinking. In all my life, I've never experienced such freedom as I have these past few days. It's not that I was ever directly forced to do anything, but as a princess, I was expected to act a certain way. The posture I kept, how I walked, the way I spoke, even my very thoughts had to reflect the dignity of royalty. Take speech, for instance. Even when speaking to someone older than my father, I was taught to use haughty, superior language as if I were of greater worth. My old tutor, the Viscountess Terrace, drilled the importance of language into me, often mercilessly so. She told me countless stories of how a servant, growing too familiar due to the royal's overly casual tone, forgot their place and was executed for showing disrespect in front of a noble. Or how a noble, emboldened by the royal's overly friendly manner, attempted to overthrow the crown. It was drilled into me that royal speech was not just formality. It defined the social order, guided behavior, and ultimately protected our subordinates. I understood that. I practiced it. But in truth, I always hated that condescending way of speaking. Maybe if I were truly someone great, it would feel justified, but I know better now. Besides, everyone who came through the palace was far more impressive than I could ever hope to be. I couldn't just ignore them. Talking with subordinates was necessary, but it wore me down. Only the conversations with my family felt like a safe space. But Alan is different. He talks to me so naturally, so freely. It makes me relax, and before I know it, I find myself talking the same way. This freedom is so... A few days ago, Alan asked why I was being pursued. Telling him the reason would mean revealing my identity. Alan is a noble too. If he finds out I'm royalty, former royalty, he might stop speaking to me the way he does now. Just a little longer. I wanted to hold on to this freedom just a bit longer, so I asked him to wait. To be honest, I want to ask Alan about his homeland, his rank, all of it. But if I ask, I'll have to share my story too. That's why I haven't. Still, for our journey's safety, I'll have to tell him everything soon. Don't. All right, breakfast is done. Time to head out. As usual, we're carrying a lot of gear, but thanks to magic, we don't need to haul much water, so things are lighter. We had 3 water bottles. I folded up 2. These bottles, when empty and pressed, turn into soft, collapsible material.
but the moment you pour in even a little liquid, they snap back to their original shape. Shape memory plastic, apparently. The company that patented it became the Empire's top bottle maker. In the space we saved, I packed some dried salmon. I tried making it as an experiment. It turned out quite well. More a delicacy than a staple, perfect as a snack with alcohol. But it uses an absurd amount of salt, so I only made 2. I could go for a drink. I wonder if we'll be able to once we reach town. We retrace our steps along the riverbed, heading back to the road. I think we walked for about 3 hours to get here. With Nanom on alert duty, I used the time to ask Claria about a few things. Until now, I was too focused on learning the language, so I haven't asked the basics. I didn't want to come off as crazy by suddenly asking things like, "What's this world called?" So I held back. Even so, lately Claria's been answering my questions like she thinks I have amnesia or I'm not from this continent. She started offering explanations even for things I haven't asked, probably because I've been asking some pretty weird stuff. But that's a good sign. I'll take this chance to ask more of the questions that have been on my mind. Interestingly, Claria has never asked me about my origins or profession. I can't answer honestly anyway, but if I'm curious, surely she is too.
The fact that she's not asking probably means she'd feel obliged to answer in turn if she did. That's likely tied to the reason she's being pursued. If she plans to tell me soon, I'll hold back from prying into that for now. So, we're headed for a city called Gotanya in the Kingdom of Berta. I had heard the city name, but not the country. She said she's going to visit a relative. Seems like it's a convenient stop along the way for work. Apparently, the land we're walking through doesn't belong to any country. It looks fertile enough that people could live here, but the terrain is too uneven for easy development. Maybe that's why it's still unclaimed. The language spoken in Berta is the same one we're using now. In fact, Claria says there's no place she knows of where this language won't work. Now I understand why she thinks I'm not from this continent. The currency is standardized across countries: copper, silver, large silver, gold, large gold, and platinum coins. 10 of each make the next tier. The coins are called guineas. Platinum coin? What kind of metal is that? Right now, I have 5 large copper, 5 silver, and 5 gold coins. That totals 55,500 guineas. When I asked how much a loaf of bread costs, Claria didn't know. She's probably never bought bread before. Either she never had money for it, or just never had to shop herself. My guess is the latter. Now that I think of it, she does have an air of nobility. Her clothes don't look rough, and her sword has ornate decorations. Why didn't I notice before? Maybe that first image, her drenched in blood, burned into my mind and made me see her as a pitiful girl. I assumed she was the youngest, low-ranking mercenary in her group, but maybe she was a noble and the others were her guards. Then again, would a noble girl wear armor? On this uncivilized planet, maybe that's the norm. No point in overthinking it now. As I'm lost in thought, the road comes into view. Time to stay alert, though with detection magic, there's not much I need to do. Right now, it's set to detect anything larger than a small animal, say the size of a big boar or bigger. Nothing within a 700-meter radius. Beyond that distance, the interference between mana fields makes detection unreliable, so I've kept the range to 700 meters. If I adjust the target to only large creatures, I could extend the range. The road winds a lot, so visibility's poor, but with this range, we'll have enough time to hide if anything dangerous comes. Good, we've made it back to the road without incident. I start walking alongside Claria again. I've been meaning to ask, she says, pointing to my rifle. What is that? It's a weapon. No point trying to dodge the question. Her eyes light up with excitement. What kind of weapon? How do you use it? You hold it like this, aim, and then pull here. It fires something like a magical arrow. You can't see the arrow, though. I mimic the action. Amazing! Is it a magical tool? A magical tool, huh? That's an intriguing term. Can I hold it? I take the rifle off my shoulder and hand it to her. Of course, it's keyed to me, no one else can fire it. Claria tries holding and aiming it like I did.
Can I try using it? Sorry, but it only has a limited number of uses. It's my trump card, so I can't waste any shots. Now that I think of it, how many do I have left? At standard output, you have 4,980 uses remaining. That seems like a lot, but it's not infinite. At 500 shots a year, that's only 10 years. Can't afford to waste any. Alan's trump card, then I'd better not use it. She hands it back. I seize the chance to ask about the magical tools she mentioned. They're items that can cast spells on their own, things like water dispensers, fire starters, or lanterns. They use something called magic stones as their power source. Basically, they're this world's version of energy packs. Depending on the item, prices can be very high. Some are even legendary artifacts, so rare they're said to be impossible to recreate. I'd love to see one someday. Oops, it's already noon. Time for lunch. Claria's been fidgeting for a while now. Guess she was hungry. Lunch is stir-fried veggies loaded with black bird meat and our go-to salted salmon. I prepped it this morning. I even used an empty bottle as a makeshift container. Delicious. As we eat, I think about our food supplies. Along the way, I picked herbs and veggies I found and packed them. For dinner, we'll finish off the leftover black bird meat. It should be safe if I cook it well. Claria's appetite didn't slow down even after her recovery. I tried giving her a normal portion this morning, and she devoured it. Guess a veggie-only stir-fry won't cut it tomorrow. I'd better keep hunting for meat when I can. After lunch, we're walking again. I still have so many questions. Around 4 p.m., I start thinking about where to camp. Then we come across a side path. At its entrance, there's a pillar with writing on it. I look to Claria. It says 2 kilometers to Taurus Village, she says. A village? I definitely want to check it out. Did you know there was a village here? I ask. I didn't, but when I traveled with my companions, we sometimes stopped at villages for the night. She probably left all the planning to her companions. Honestly, I'd assumed we'd be camping the whole way. Mind if we stop by? Of course not. Yes, I'll finally get to meet someone besides Claria. This should be fun.